Hello everyone, my name is Andrés Borges. I am a full-time employee at the Instituto Nacional de Metrología de Colombia, and on this occasion I will be presenting on behalf of both Dr. Edwin Cristancho Pinilla, who is the General Director of INM, and Dr. Álvaro Bermúdez, who is the Deputy Director of Physical Metrology at INM. This presentation is carried out within the framework of the DCC International Conference, scheduled to take place between October 20th and October 21st of 2020. We thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this event. First of all, you can see here the abstract submitted for the conference. I will of course not be reading this entire text. If you are interested in its content, you should find it available on the conference materials, or you could also ask Dr. Cristancho to forward it over to you. All right, let's have a look at the content of the presentation. First of all, we would like to present to you the background of the digital transformation originally intended for INM, followed by some aspects regarding the current state of the digital transformation in Colombia. After that, we want to show you the advances in digitalization that have been done until now at INM and its relationship with the quality infrastructure. And finally, we'll discuss some future perspectives regarding this inevitable transformation for our country. So, regarding the background of the digital transformation of the metrological processes in Colombia, INM has determined to adopt PTB's framework to advance in the implementation of digitalization, considering tools such as the Digital Calibration Certificate, which we find is easy to adapt and implement in the medium term. This doesn't mean, of course, that INM has not been implementing right now some advances in both digitization and digitalization within itself. Our time and frequency laboratory exhibits some advanced digitalization, and some additional laboratories have good and intermediate levels of digitization in its internal processes. Besides that, INN implemented on 2020 what it's called a business process management called BP Metro, which serves as an administrator or manager of services. Colombia also has a transversal policy called Colombia's Digital Government, under which the presidency has required INM and all other public entities to design and develop a digitalization of their processes to further enhance its relationship with its citizens. This policy is very much harmonized with the projected implementation of the DCC. Finally, we all know that one of the main goals of metrology institutes is to produce reliable results and have comparability at the international stage. This, of course, means that a certain interoperability between users of the quality infrastructure, or QI, of the Colombian government needs to be in place. The consequences of not implementing a digital transformation in metrological processes are, first of all, sliding into obsolescence and isolation, which will certainly obstruct the comparability between economies and ultimately restrict the development of new CMCs. There is also the risk of losing competitiveness, because to ignore the digital transformation means that there will be a restriction to provide competitive services to the secondary laboratories at the national level. In this manner, INM is continuously trying to make QI users aware of the benefits and practicality of a digital calibration certificate, and it's also involving itself in different international scenarios such as this conference. Okay, let's now have a look at the current state of things in Colombia. First of all, you can see here a compilation of different policies, guidelines, and decrees concerning the digital transformation in Colombia. As you can see, these documents have been issued along the last few years, mainly since the 2000s, and it has been the effort of the Colombian government to keep up with the ongoing transformation in digital tools, which have been almost flooding international economies, especially in the last decade. Here on the right, you can see one of the most recent policies published by the Compass, which is the Colombian National Council of Economic and Social Policy, regarding the national policy for the digital transformation and artificial intelligence. As you can see, it was issued back in 2019. Over here, you can see a bar graph from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, listing the fixed broadband subscriptions per 100 inhabitants. It was issued back in 2019. You can see here on the red arrow the position of our country, which is in the last position. However, this comparison is against developed countries such as Switzerland and the Netherlands, which of course have been working on this since a long time ago, and Colombia only joined this organization a couple of years back. Over here on the blue arrow, you can see the overall average of the graph, and under the green arrow, you can see the country from our region, which is South America, with the highest score, which is Chile. Following the previous chart, you can see here a report from the World Economic Forum citing some indicators regarding the level of digitalization of different countries. Over here on this column, you can see the position which Colombia occupies on aspects such as mobile cellular telephone subscriptions per 100 inhabitants, on which we occupy position 43 out of 141. Our overall position, considering all of these indicators, you can see is 87 out of 141, which indicates that Colombia occupies a very average position in this ranking. Alright, now having showed the background on the current state of the digital transformation in Colombia, we can dive now into the advances of I&M regarding this transition and its relationship with the quality infrastructure. Over here on this slide, you can see PTB's framework for digital transformation for the quality infrastructure. As you can see, this is a well-structured matrix considering multiple factors that ultimately produce these results you find right here on the right. The layout of the matrix shows basically the requirements for a successful digital transformation of the quality infrastructure, which requires, quote, a holistic consideration of data security, suitable data formats, data availability, and a legal framework, unquote. You can see these four elements right here on the left. The expected result of applying this matrix would be the secured exchange of metrological data, a unified SI-based communication, possibly between databases and other machines, role-based worldwide access with platforms such as a metrological cloud, and all of these elements would be within a legal framework that would make them practical and admissible in law. We will come back to this matrix in a couple of minutes, but this time applied to the Colombian context of operation. On this slide, you can see a diagram which explains how the quality infrastructure works in Colombia. This pyramid scheme represents the level of hierarchy of the different participants of the QI. Over here, at the top of the metrological pyramid, we find, of course, the International System of Units, under which we find BIPM, who handles the KCDB, and the publication of the CMCs of the countries belonging to the Meter Convention. Further down, you can find the position which I&M occupies on the metrological hierarchy, and below I&M, you can find the entire network of accredited laboratories, and below that are the users of metrological services and other calibration and testing laboratories, all of which need reliable measurement services. Here on the right, you can see the other pillars of the quality infrastructure in Colombia, which concern accreditation, legal metrology, and normalization. In Colombia, the entity charged with the accreditation of secondary laboratories is the ONAC, which is the National Accreditation Organization. And above it is, of course, the International Organization for Accreditation Bodies, or ILAC. Regarding the legal metrology component of the QI, we have the Superintendence of Industry and Commerce, which handles all the matters concerning this area of metrology. And above it, we can find, of course, the International Organization of Legal Metrology, OIML. On the farther right, you can find ICONTEC, which is the institute in charge of issuing normalization guidelines and documents, and above it is, of course, the ISO and IEC. Okay, so coming back to the strategy adopted by I&M, you can see here in this slide the sort of adaptation from PTB's proposed matrix for digital transformation. We would like to break down the matrix now into the different entities which were in charge and are or will be in charge of carrying out the four elements of the digitalization strategy. The data security role has been mainly under the command of the Ministry of Information Technologies and Communications. However, the future development of metrological platforms will need to be carried out alongside with I&M, given that it needs to be aligned with the highest security regulations. And this, of course, represents a challenge, given that online data security can be compromised on multiple scenarios if the reference architecture is not stable enough to guarantee reliability on data encryption. Following up on the data formats element, ONAC has been in charge of compiling information, especially regarding secondary accredited laboratories and its respective CMCs. Their database can serve as a stepping stone to develop machine-readable information, which of course would need to be written or coded into structures or extensions such as XML and JSON. This task would need to be accompanied by both INM and ICONTAC to produce a harmonized metadata set and data structures. Now, INM has had an important role providing secure data and communication between other entities of the quality infrastructure, and it would be its job as well to define the roles for the access of data in order to establish the worldwide access based on roles for all the quality infrastructure partners. Finally, the legal framework has been developed especially by both the National Planning Department and the Superintendents of Industry and Commerce. These actors of the QI have provided along the years legal requirements and consumer protection regarding digital matters. The present and future role that INM, along with other entities, would be to aid in the setup of the reference architectures and interfaces that are practical and admissible under Colombian law. Okay, so having mentioned the intended strategy for the digital transformation of the QI and INM's role in it, let's take a look at some elements that have been implemented at the Institute. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that INM has already made some advancements regarding the digital transformation of metrological processes by implementing a business process manager called BP Metro. This platform was developed in 2019 and implemented on 2020. Its scope concerns metrological services as well as requests, complaints, and claims. However, at the moment, the document that arrives at the recipient is merely a PDF document. The diagram right here on the right shows the principle of operation of this management tool. The idea is to have an infrastructure centered around BP Metro, which can then handle all the processes inside the organization by communicating with databases and the INM website, and ultimately this process will conclude with the communication with a specific client without having to go through all the current stages of communication, which can be quite a lot. Alright, now how exactly are NMIs in Latin America, including Colombia, doing in terms of digital transformation, and who could be our partners in future projects? Well, as of now, you can see that between 50 and 65% of NMIs in Latin America have an initial pilot of development in digitization of metrological services. They also have some first developments of a metrological cloud, and they also use information technology for training. In the future, namely by 2025, the Metrology Institutes of Latin America expect to have a demand for calibration services in 5G communication, as well as to have a demand of services associated with calibration or remote testing. And additionally, there is the projection to have a metrological standard language and code, as well as metrological services for big data. INM's view for the digital transformation is that its partners for improving the current tools and processes should be those who have either a better or similar development profile than Colombia. Okay, so how do we continue from here? Well, for starters, INM has participated on the project M4DT SIM PTB, and among its main objectives, you can find that they are all pointing towards the digital transformation of NMIs, and between its topics, we have decided to prioritize the digital calibration certificate and the digital transformation strategy for the Colombian NMI. From this activity, we identify some common actions between our country and partners such as Costa Rica, involving process automation, digital signature, and legal time service. The established partners looking to the future are Mexico, Canada, Costa Rica, Uruguay, and Argentina. So as you can see, we are trying to overextend our reach to multiple societies in the hopes of further enhancing our own processes and services. Here, you can see our steps to follow on the international stage, which concern the participation in the development of the DCC. Also, given the nature of the DSI, another step to follow would be to determine the use of units in digitized communication of machine-readable data. Finally, INM would like to propose cooperation projects with other countries in order to develop digital simulators for standards like a digital twin in a particular magnitude. On the national stage, INM will work to characterize the different levels of digitalization and make a contrast with the present and future needs of the productive sector. We will also set out to evaluate the institutional framework to promote digitalization in Colombia and the countries of the region. And finally, INM will produce pilot tests of digital calibration certificates with magnitudes that already use metadata for certificate generation, possibly those that use XML language and timestamping. One example of this type of communication protocol is the ISO 8601 format that you find right here at the bottom, which is the international standard for reporting the legal time. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to us. We hope that the presentation was clear enough and that you understood all aspects within it. We look forward to receive any questions, comments, or suggestions. Good day.